You've made a terrible mistake. You don't remember how you got here exactly, but here you are standing in the middle of a foggy street in 1939 England, wearing a scratchy wool coat 2 sizes too small and holding a suitcase that smells faintly of pickles. You're supposed to be getting cozy in bed right now. Warm blanket, fluffy pillow, maybe the faint hum of a fan or your phone buzzing with a late night email you plan to ignore. But no. Instead, you've somehow willed yourself into the opening credits of World War II and the channel changer is missing. Welcome to England, old chap. It's autumn. And by autumn, we mean a month-long drizzle where the sky never fully commits to raining, but also refuses to let the sun out. The kind of weather that gives you trench foot just from reading about it. Your socks are already damp, and you've only been here for 10 minutes. That's impressive, honestly. You take a cautious step forward and immediately slip on a cabbage leaf. Why is there a cabbage leaf in the middle of the road? Who knows? It's the 30s. Vegetables go where they want. You regain your balance with all the grace of a baby deer on roller skates, and then someone shouts from a nearby window, "Oi, you, blackout curtains!" You look up. A woman in a headscarf is pointing directly at your face. That's when you realize the glow she's seeing is from the flashlight you've been waving around like a lightsaber. Apparently, blackout rules are no joke here. All lights must be out or tightly covered after dusk unless, of course, you want to help German bombers find your street. You quietly switch it off and give her a sheepish little wave. She glares like she wants to report you to Winston Churchill himself. Right. Let's regroup. You're an Englishman now. Somehow. And this week, yes. Just 1 week you're supposed to live like it's wartime Britain. You don't have a smartphone. You don't have central heating. You definitely don't have Netflix. What you do have is a coupon book, wet shoes, and mild to severe confusion. You're already missing your mattress. Think about it for a moment how warm it is right now back in real life. That soft duvet, that little half snore you sometimes do when you're just about to fall asleep. Don't you wish you were still there instead of trudging down a cobbled street that smells faintly of coal smoke and boiled onions? Too late now. You arrive at your home for the Wicca modest brick row house with peeling paint and a doorbell that doesn't work. Inside, the landlady, Mrs. Henshaw, greets you with a nod and a look that suggests she's already judged everything about you, from your haircut to your lack of visible potato peeler skills. "Shoes off at the door," she says without looking up from her knitting. The floorboards creak like haunted bones as you shuffle in. It's cold. So cold, in fact, that you can see your breath. She offers you a cup of tea that tastes like it's been reheated 17 times. You sip it anyway because it's warm, and your hands are turning into ice sculpture versions of themselves. "You'll be sleeping in the front room," she says. "Don't mind the draft. Or the cat," he bites Americans. You nod politely, unsure whether she's joking. The Catan enormous tabby with one eye and a face like a fist glares at you from the armchair. That night, you try to get some sleep. Your bed is a cot with a lumpy mattress stuffed with horsehair and disappointment. There's one scratchy wool blanket, one pillow shaped like a brick, and zero heating. You lie there staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering why you thought this would be a good idea. Then it starts, a siren in the distance. It begins low like a faraway whale crying for help, and then builds to a howl that feels like it's ripping through your very soul. Air raid. You bolt upright. Mrs. Henshaw doesn't flinch. She just pours herself another cup of reheated tea and mutters something about Jerry being early tonight. You panic. "Where do we go?" you whisper. She points at the cellar door. You grab your blanket and sprint, slipping slightly on the cat who growls in a way that suggests he might eat you if the bombs don't. The cellar smells like old boots and regret. There are 2 chairs, a cracked radio, and an empty biscuit tin. You sit, knees to chest, blanket wrapped tight, listening as planes rumble overhead. It's terrifying and surreal. Mrs. Henshaw hums a wartime tune and knits calmly while the house above you rattles. You're half certain, you're dreaming, or that someone has put something very strange in your tea. You'll get used to it, she says casually. First night's the worst. That's comforting. Eventually, the all clear sounds. You're shaking, but somehow alive. You shuffle back to your cot, eyes wide, mind racing, and yet, as you lie there, something odd happens. You start to feel the tiniest bit proud. You survived your first air raid. Sure, you screamed a little and dropped your flashlight, but technically you lived. You glance out the window and see the stars peeking through the fog. The cat is curled up at your feet. The blanket, rough as it is, holds in just enough warmth. And somewhere out there, back in your real world, you're probably snoozing under modern bedding in an apartment with heating, Wi-Fi, and not a single government-mandated blackout curtain in sight. But not here. Here, you're a very uncomfortable Englishman, and it's only day one. Sweet dreams. You wake up with your face pressed against a cot that smells faintly of old mothballs and shoe polish. The scratchy wool blanket has wrapped itself around your legs like a boa constrictor, and the cat yays, the one-eyed menace from last night, is sitting directly on your chest, watching you like he's considering claiming your organs as rent. You survived your first night. Barely. But this morning is about to introduce you to something far more terrifying than bombs. British breakfast during rationing. The kitchen is cold. The kind of cold where your breath fogs up your spoon. Mrs. Henshaw is already up, wearing the same knitted sweater she had on yesterday and probably the day before. She's stirring a pot of something on the stove that sounds like it's bubbling in protest. Porridge, she says, without turning around. You glance at the table. There are 2 bowls, one chipped, one cracked. She gestures to the cracked one. You sit. The porridge lands in your bowl with a slop. It looks like wallpaper paste and smells like damp oats and defeat. You ask if there's sugar. She stares at you like you just asked if she could sprinkle unicorn tears on top. You'll get your ration sugar on Thursday, she says, if there's any left. You take a bite. It tastes like sadness. As you're trying to chew through it because porridge during wartime apparently requires a full set of molars, you hear the radio click on. A plummy BBC voice announces the weather, rain, the mood of the nation, grim, and a reminder to save string, save soap, and always carry your gas mask. Mrs. Henshaw pats her handbag. Never leave the house without it, she says. Like lipstick, only it keeps your lungs inside you. You nod solemnly while your body tries to digest something it has declared not food. After breakfast, she shows you your duties for the day. You were hoping it would be something cozy, like writing poetry or organizing cans. Instead, she hands you a broom, a ration book, and a card with your official wartime identity on it. It's a tiny piece of paper that says, basically, yes, this person exists. You'll want to register for your ration stamps at the post office, she explains. Then pop by the butcher. Ask if he's got any offal. You stare blankly. Offal? Organ meat, she says cheerfully. Tongue, tripe, lungs, kidneys, that sort of thing. You briefly reconsider everything you've ever done that led you to this moment. Still, you step outside into the foggy London street. It's early, and already there's a queue outside the bakery. No one talks. Everyone stares straight ahead like they're preparing to be disappointed. Which, to be fair, they probably are. Wartime queues were sort of like national group therapy where everyone's cold, everyone's annoyed, and nobody's getting what they came for. At the post office, a tired woman in a hat shaped like a melon stamps your ration book and gives you a stern look when you ask if it can be laminated. Papers for the war effort, she snaps. You'll take it floppy. You apologize and leave quickly. Then, it's on to the butcher. The shop smells strong. Not bad, just very meaty. Hanging from hooks are what appear to be mystery slabs. The butcher, a man with enormous forearms and a mustache that could store soup, offers you a smile. You're the new chap from Mrs. Henshaw's? He says. I've got something special for you today. He slaps a parcel on the counter. Ox tongue. You blank. You fry it right, he continues, and it only tastes a bit like carpet. You thank him like he's handed you a rare delicacy and clutch the parcel like it might explode. You walk home, trying not to breathe through your nose. Back at the house, Mrs. Henshaw is thrilled. Lovely. We'll have that with potatoes and powdered gravy for dinner. You're settling in just fine. She says this as if you've finally earned your place in the weird, cold rhythm of wartime Britain, and in a way, you have. But it's not over yet. That evening, you're invited next door for tea. Your neighbors, the Crimbletons, are a married couple who look like they were born during a fog and have never smiled. Their living room smells like boiled fabric. The wallpaper is peeling but proudly like it survived worse and doesn't care what you think. They serve you tea made from reused leaves and a biscuit that might have been baked during the Boer War. Still, you drink it, because in this world, tea is currency, therapy, and religion all in one. Then comes the part you weren't expecting, singing. Morale, Mr. Crimbleton says, clearing his throat. Must keep spirits up. He strums a ukulele that's been missing 3 strings since 1928, and they launch into a song about how Hitler smells like turnips. You're not sure if you're allowed to laugh, but you do anyway, and to your surprise, they do too. You're starting to see it. Underneath the gray skies and the powdered food, there's a strange resilience here, a grim sort of cheerfulness. People joke, they share, they keep moving. It's cold, it's grim, and you're still absolutely certain you won't make it to the end of the week, but for a moment, you feel like maybe you could. That night, as you crawl under your scratchy blanket again, the cat flops down beside you like a sack of warm bricks. Outside, the wind howls gently through the cracks in the windows. Somewhere distant, a siren sounds but is far away tonight. You snuggle deeper into the covers and imagine the pillow is just a bit softer than it actually is. Your body is sore, your stomach is confused, and your feet haven't been warm since breakfast. But still, somehow, you're kind of proud. Now drift off, if you can. Tomorrow, things will get louder. It's been 3 days. That's roughly 72 hours, or if you're counting more accurately, 143 minutes of actual sleep. You were hoping this whole being an Englishman during World War II thing would start to feel easier by now. Maybe you'd begin blending in. Maybe your body would adapt to subsisting on mashed root vegetables and sheer panic. But no, you're still the same sleepy, underfed outsider, just with slightly colder toes and slightly louder tinnitus. And just as you begin to drift off into the sweet arms of a mid-morning nap wrapped in your itchy wool blanket, cheek resting gently on the pillow briquet begins again. The siren. Not the kind from Greek mythology who sings sailors to their doom. No, this one is much less charming. It starts with a low moan and then rises steadily into a full-blown scream like a kettle of existential dread. Your eyelids pop open, your blanket flies off. The cat your furry war roommates prints off the bed like a torpedo of claws and fury. Another air raid. Because, clearly, what you needed more than rest was adrenaline and terror. You stumble to your feet and bang your shin on the metal frame of the cot. For the 3rd time in as many days, you mutter something that Mrs. Henshaw probably wouldn't appreciate and scramble for your gas mask. Where did you leave it? You always leave it by the... Ah, there it is, being used as a chew toy by the cat. Of course. You yank it away, slap it over your face, and rush toward the cellar stairs. You pass Mrs. Henshaw in the hallway, who doesn't look remotely alarmed. In fact, she's eating toast. 3rd one this week, she says mid-chew. Probably the Luftwaffe testing our nerves. Don't forget your blanket. You consider asking her how she can remain so calm when literal bombs are about to fall from the sky, but the look in her eyes suggests she's lived through worse, possibly her husband's cooking. You grab your blanket, duck into the cellar, and collapse into your usual chair, panting like you've just run a marathon in steel-toed boots. It's still dark, damp, and vaguely haunted smelling down here. The walls are lined with canned beans and jars of pickled things you suspect might once have been animals. You try to focus on your breathing, like one of those calming apps would suggest, but instead of ocean waves, you've got the distant rumble of aircraft. Boom, It's faint, but it's there. Boom. A little closer this time. You feel it in your stomach. The cat growls softly and curls up in a laundry basket. You're starting to envy him. Mrs. Henshaw hums under her breath and knits. She knits through everything. You're beginning to suspect she might still be knitting when the bombs hit. As the house collapses in slow motion around her, needles clicking all the way down, she glances up. You all right then? You nod, too prouder, too frozen in fear to admit otherwise. You are very much not all right, but if Britain is good at one thing, it's pretending everything is fine while clearly dying inside. Just a little bombing today, she says. You get used to it. You will never get used to it. You sit in silence, curled in your blanket like a wartime burrito, staring at the wall and wondering how anyone ever managed to sleep through this. You've read accounts of people dozing off mid-raid. Is that just something the human brain does when it gives up? Eventually, the all clear sounds. You crawl back upstairs, exhausted, and slightly nauseous from the tension. It's only lunchtime. Mrs. Henshaw places a plate in front of you. Boiled potatoes, a spoonful of powdered eggs, and what might be tinned ham or possibly pink chalk. You eat in silence, chewing slowly, like each bite is a betrayal of everything your taste buds once held dear. Just as you're about to lie back down and attempt nap number 2, there's a knock at the door. You open it to find a man in a uniform holding a clipboard. He has the gleam of someone who enjoys rules a bit too much. You're on the neighborhood fire watch rota, he says. Tonight, midnight to 4. You blink. Me? Yes, he says cheerfully. You've got that fit and alert look. You try to smile, but your eyelid is twitching. The clipboard man hands you a flashlight, a whistle, and a metal helmet with a dent in the side. He points out your post, the corner by the bakery. It's easy, he says. Just patrol and shout if anything catches fire. You stare at him. What do I do if something is on fire? Shout louder. Right. Later that night, wrapped in 3 layers and one very grumpy attitude, you stand on the corner like a confused museum exhibit. Its dark blackout rules are in full effect, and you can barely see your own hand. Your flashlight is about as bright as a glowworm on life support. The streets are quiet, eerily so. Every now and then, you hear distant thuds or the low drone of engines overhead, but no one's screaming. Nothing's on fire. You yawn, then yawn again. The cold begins to numb your brain. You lean against a brick wall and slowly slide down to the pavement. Just a quick rest. Just 5 minutes. You're wrapped in your blanket, helmet slipping over your eyes, flashlight resting on your lap like a sleeping cat. And for the first time in what feels like forever, you almost fall asleep. Then something explodes. It's just a tire backfiring. But to your nerves, it's the sound of the world ending. You scream, you fling your helmet across the street, you blow your whistle. Every light on the block flips on. Windows open, angry faces appear. Bloody hell, it's just a lorry. Go back to America. Some of us were trying to sleep. You sit frozen on the pavement, flashlight flickering sadly, as your reputation disintegrates like a biscuit in weak tea. Back at Mrs. Henshaw's, she doesn't even say anything, just sets out a cup of lukewarm tea and a small tin of biscuits. You eat them in silence. You'll do better next time, she says. You won't, but that's sweet of her to say. Eventually, you crawl back into bed. The cat joins you, purring like a motorbike. You wrap yourself up in the blanket and listen to the wind outside. And despite everything, the panic, the exhaustion, the fact that your fire-watching career lasted all of 20 minutes, you're somehow still here, you'll never get used to this. But maybe, just maybe, you're adapting. Now close your eyes again. It's quiet for now. Just you, the cat, and your new best friend. Bone-deep fatigue. You wake up with your feet sticking out from under the blanket and the cat sitting directly on your face. It's not a gentle morning. Your spine feels like it's been stored in a filing cabinet overnight, and your breath smells like tinned fish, even though you haven't eaten tinned fish. This is the price of wartime England. Mrs. Henshaw knocks once on your door before barging in with a jug of hottish water and a bowl. "Wash," she says, placing it on the rickety side table like she's done it 1,000 times. Which, to be fair, she probably has. You eye the bowl. It's smaller than a salad plate and already cool to the touch. "No shower?" you ask hopefully. She laughs, not kindly. "Shower?" she says. "This isn't the Ritz. You're lucky the tap didn't freeze again." You quickly discover that washing involves splashing exactly 1 pint of water across your face and then drying it with what might once have been a towel but now feels like a loofah made of sandpaper. You feel less clean than you did before starting. Dressing is next. Today's outfit is wool. Everything is wool. You put on your thick socks, your scratchy jumper, your coat, your trousers, all of them varying shades of gray or brown. You look like an underpaid geography teacher with an upper respiratory infection. "Boots by the door," Mrs. Henshaw calls from downstairs. You find them, big, black, and possibly used by someone during the Boer War. They are 2 sizes too small and weigh more than your sense of impending doom. You shove your feet in anyway, and immediately the blisters begin. You clomp down the stairs, each step an exercise in medieval punishment, and find Mrs. Henshaw standing beside a black curtain draped over the front door. "The blackout," she explains. "Every window, every crack, every keyhole, no light after sunset, or we'll be showing Jerry the way." She says it like it's a matter of fact, but her eyes say, "We will all be responsible if someone forgets to cover the teapot spout." You learn fast. Blackout regulations are no joke. Even a sliver of light can get you fined, or worse, publicly scolded by Mrs. Henshaw in front of the baker. Already you've heard of 3 locals who forgot to cover their windows and were branded Hitler's little helpers by Mildred down the road. You're handed a roll of tape and a stack of newspaper clippings and told to reinforce the windows upstairs. You go to the bedroom and tape like your life depends on it, because it does. You cover the cracks, double tape the edges, and then recheck everything twice. You've become what you once feared, a man who's aggressively paranoid about light leakage. By late afternoon, the house looks like a haunted museum exhibit. No natural light, no artificial light, just the eerie glow of a single candle placed in the center of the kitchen table. Dinner tonight is a revelation. It's gray. That's the only word for it. The plate features a scoop of mashed swede, a rectangle of something labeled meatloaf, but definitely just minced mystery, and a chunk of bread so dense you could use it in construction. Mrs. Blake Henshaw serves it with a smile, like she's presenting foie gras. You chew slowly, trying not to look too shocked. "What's in the meatloaf?" "Don't ask," she says. "It's better that way." After dinner, you excuse yourself to use the bathroom. You've been holding it in all day, partly out of fear and partly out of instinctive distrust of the plumbing. And it's worse than expected. The indoor toilet is out of order. You know this because there's a note taped to it. Don't. Instead, you are pointed to the end of the garden. There you find the bucket. It's inside a wooden shack that leans slightly to the left, as though it's trying to escape its own shame. The door squeaks open with all the subtlety of a ghost in a horror film. You step inside, and your breath fogs in the air. The bucket is metal, cold, dented. The seat is wooden, cracked, and surrounded by 3 pieces of newspaper hung from a nail. You assume they are not for reading. You sit, and in that moment, you understand true humility. The wind whistles through the gaps in the planks. Somewhere nearby, a fox screams, or maybe that's just your soul exiting your body. When you return, pale and slightly traumatized, Mrs. Henshaw gives you a knowing nod. "We all cry the first time," she says kindly. You go to bed early that night. Not because you're tired, you are, but because there is literally nothing else to do. The blackout rules mean no lights, no radio, and certainly no reading. You lie in the dark, listening to the creaks of the house and the occasional cough from next door. And yet, somehow, despite the cold, the food, and the haunted outhouse, it's cozy. In a deeply miserable way. You're bundled in layers. The cat is curled up beside you like a sentient hot water bottle. And for the first time all day, no one is shouting about offal. Your eyes begin to close. Then, someone flushes the toilet down the street and you sit bolt upright. It's a terrifying sound when you've been living in a place where plumbing has to be begged to function. You listen. Nothing else. Just silence, peace, maybe even boom. Another explosion. This one closer than usual. You don't even scream this time. You just roll over, sigh, and pull the blanket over your head. Because at this point, you're more tired than scared. Maybe that's what true wartime endurance is. Learning to sleep in spite of the chaos. Or maybe it's just your brain giving up and turning itself off. Either way, you're still here. Still somehow alive. Still in England. Still needing a new pair of boots. Sleep tight, but don't roll off the bed. The cat bites. It begins with a knock on the window. You're mid-sip of your evening to lukewarm, slightly gray, and suspiciously salty when Mrs. Henshaw stands abruptly. That's the code, she mutters, as if this is normal. You, meanwhile, are still recovering from your last interaction with the bucket. Your nerves are shredded, your legs are sore from walking on shoes shaped like bricks, and now you're being told to pack a bag and head underground. You were really hoping for a quiet night. No time, Mrs. Henshaw snaps. Grab your gas mask and your bedding. The Crimbletons have the good bunker. You blink. Wait, who? But she's already wrapping a scarf around her head like a very grumpy superhero and hurrying out the door. You follow her into the night. The blackout is so thorough that even the moon feels guilty for shining. You clutch your tin helmet, your rolled up blanket, and a small emergency bag full of exactly one stale biscuit and some powdered milk that expired before the war even started. The Crimbletons live 3 houses down, and they greet you like they weren't just staring out the window watching your every move. Downstairs, Mr. Crimbleton says, pointing to a wooden door that leads under their house. No funny business, I'm watching you. You smile politely, unsure what funny business would even look like in a bunker during a German air raid, but you nod and descend the stairs into the unknown. The air hits you first. It smells like damp socks, boiled cabbage, and the faint lingering spirit of someone's childhood trauma. It's not a shelter, it's a cellar, converted in the loosest sense of the word. The floor is concrete, uneven, and cold enough to kill a houseplant. The walls are bare brick, sweating moisture like they're nervous, and it's cramped. There are already 6 people inside. One of them is knitting. One is sleeping. One is absolutely not aware that they're snoring like a dying walrus. You quietly tiptoe to a corner near a pile of mystery tins and try to make yourself invisible. You lay out your blanket on what appears to be a burlap sack filled with straw. It crunches when you lie down. You hope it's straw. It could be rats. You make peace with either outcome. Mrs. Henshaw takes the spot beside you and immediately begins reading a battered copy of the Woman's Weekly Digest of Wartime Cooking. It features recipes like mock sausage and invisible pudding. You shudder slightly. The air raid sirens are louder underground, oddly enough, like someone is blowing a trumpet into your spine. Then come the planes. You can hear them buzzing above like wasps with vendettas. The occasional boom shakes dust from the ceiling. You stare upward. Every creak sounds like it might be the roof collapsing. Every vibration makes your teeth rattle. You wonder, not for the first time, how anyone ever slept through this. Then Mrs. Crimbleton hands you a tin mug of something hot and says, "Drink it. Calms the nerves." You sip it. It tastes like boiled string and regret, but your hand stops shaking, at least a little. Suddenly, there's a loud cough from the corner. A child? A gremlin? No, just old man Tillsbury who's wrapped in 2 scarves and muttering about the Kaiser despite this being the wrong war. You try to settle. You really do. You curl up. You squeeze your eyes shut. You try counting bombs sewn to too many. Then comes a sound you did not expect. Singing. Low at first, soft, then more voices join. A war era tune. Run rabbit, run, run, run. Run, run, run. You open one eye, The Crimbletons are singing. Mrs. Henshaw joins in. Even the snoring walrus man wakes briefly to hum along. And slowly, unbelievably, you feel yourself relaxing. Maybe it's the mug of boiled string tea. Maybe it's the hypnotic way British people can harmonize in total darkness during an air raid. Maybe it's sheer exhaustion. But as the chorus fades, your eyelids grow heavy. Your blanket is scratchy, but it's warm now. Your body aches, but in a way that almost feels comforting, like it's just accepted defeat and now seeks peace. You're drifting. Somewhere far above, planes still circle. Somewhere beyond this cellar, chaos reigns. But down here, it's quiet, in a strange, murky, cabbage-scented way. And just as you're about to fall asleep completely, a tin can falls off a shelf and lands squarely on your face. You yelp. The singing stops. Mr. Crimbleton glares at you over his glasses. "That's the spam shelf," he growls. "Watch your head." You nod meekly, holding your nose. Eventually, silence returns. Snoring resumes. Old man Tillsbury starts whispering about mustard gas. You pull your blanket tighter and rest your head on your emergency biscuit bag. And in a dark cellar, in a cold corner of London, you finally fall asleep. Is it comfortable? Not remotely. Is it safe? Debatable. But somehow, it works. Because down here, even as bombs fall, someone always remembers the kettle. Someone always brings the tea. And someone always sings. So, sleep tight, brave little bunkmate. Tomorrow you face powdered eggs and your first conversation with a man named Nigel. Brace yourself. You wake up with a crick in your neck and a biscuit crushed into your back pocket. The air raid shelter sleepover was, at best, a test of your will to live. At worst, it was like sharing a broom closet with 8 people and a tin of aggressive sardines. But it's morning now, or at least you think it is. The sky is still gray. It's always gray. You're beginning to suspect the sun has simply given up on Britain. You shuffle back into Mrs. Henshaw's kitchen, where the cat greets you with a disdainful meow and immediately steals your seat. You settle for the corner of the bench. Today's breakfast is artistic. A single slice of toast bun on one side, nearly raw on the other, and a thin scrape of something that might be butter but might also be solidified fear. Mrs. Henshaw beams. "Isn't it lovely?" she says. "A real treat today. Actual margarine." You nod and take a bite. It tastes like salty glue and old soap. You chew slowly, trying not to make eye contact with the cat, who is now judging your chewing technique. As you eat, she brings out a small brown book. It looks important. "Your ration book," she says. "You'll need it." You accept it cautiously. It feels like handling a sacred text. Inside, rows and rows of little stamps, each one a key to acquiring something essential. Food, soap, clothes, sometimes a questionable tin of corned beef that hisses when you open it. You run your fingers over the coupons like they're printed in gold. "Don't lose it," she warns. "You lose that, you're done for." You nod. Carefully. And then, the shopping begins. You've been told to go do the rounds, which is British for go queue for things you won't get. So you bundle up, lace your boots, which already feel like medieval torture devices, and shuffle out into the gray morning. First stop, the grocer. You join the queue. It's 8 people long. Everyone looks bored, cold, and deeply suspicious of the woman in front who may have taken 2 tins of evaporated milk last week. When you get to the front, you hand over your ration book like a humble pilgrim offering tribute. "What have you got today?" you ask. The grocer eyes you. "Well, there's dried egg powder." You nod. "And some cheese." You smile. "Beetroot in a jar." "Sure." "A Swede." "Sounds festive." "And a tin of snook." Your smile falters. "What's snook?" He pauses. "Fish." You stare at the tin. "That's it? Just fish?" He leans in. "South African fish. It's robust." You're not sure if that's a good thing or a warning. You leave with your sack of war delicacies and head next to the butcher. The butcher has a chalkboard out front. It says "Offal in stock, 2 tongues per household." You briefly consider whether that's a threat. Inside, the butcher recognizes you. "Got a kidney for you today," he announces like he's gifting you a rare diamond. He hands it over wrapped in old newspaper. It squishes in your hand. You try not to cry. Back home, Mrs. Henshaw is thrilled. "Oh, wonderful," she says, unwrapping it. "Kidney pie." It is. You say nothing. You are spiritually elsewhere. Lunch is an experience. Kidney pie, beetroot salad, mostly vinegar, and powdered milk tea. You chew carefully. You try not to smell anything, and you don't ask questions. But dessert? There is dessert, sort of. Mrs. Henshaw presents a strange grayish lump on a saucer. "Wartime fudge," she says, proud. You poke it with a fork. It jiggles, then sighs. What's in it? Condensed milk, flour, a bit of salt, and love. You taste it. She was lying about the love. The rest of the day passes in a blur of food-related horror. Mrs. Henshaw teaches you how to make mock banana using mashed parsnips and banana essence. You want to scream. Instead, you help stir. Later, you're introduced to the Ministry of Food leaflet. It contains helpful tips like, don't waste crumbs, turn them into pudding. Stretch meat by adding oats, lentils, or shoe leather. Make a single egg feed 5 people. You begin to suspect the real wartime miracle wasn't victory over the enemy. It was not starving on a diet of lies and mashed turnips. By mid-afternoon, you try to nap. You deserve it. You wrap up in your blanket, rest your head on the pillow, and let yourself drift. It's warm now, somehow. You imagine yourself back in your real bed soft sheets, blackout curtains that are optional, the distant sound of a car alarm instead of bombs. Then the cat jumps directly on your stomach, and you remember where you are. Still, you close your eyes again, for just a moment, and then a knock. It's Mildred from across the street. She's holding a tray. "We've made war cake," she says proudly. You sit up. "What's in it?" She beams. Carrots and vinegar and bicarbonate of soda. No eggs, no sugar, no joy. You take a slice. You take a bite. You forget who you are. Briefly, she waits. "Well?" she asks. You smile faintly. Tastes like resilience. That night, you lie in bed thinking about real cake. The kind with frosting, the kind with chocolate, the kind that doesn't contain root vegetables. But you're still here. You've endured powdered eggs, boiled kidneys, and carrot dessert. And somehow, you haven't fled. You're starting to suspect this war might break your spirit, but not your appetite. Sleep tight, ration boy. Tomorrow, you meet the home guard. They've been expecting you. You're halfway through your morning cup of almost tea-hot brown liquid, suspiciously reminiscent of wet cardboard, when Mrs. Henshaw informs you that today is volunteer day. You blink, cup halfway to your lips. Volunteer for what? She doesn't answer right away. She's buttering a slice of toast using a ruler. The butter is white and spreads like warm candle wax. It is technically margarine, but spiritually, it's despair. "You're joining the home guard," she says flatly. You set the cup down. "I'm sorry, what now?" "The local defense volunteers," she explains. "Dad's army. You know, bit of community spirit. We all have to do our part." You open your mouth to protest, but she raises one eyebrow in that dangerous Henshawian way. You close it again. 30 minutes later, you find yourself standing in a muddy park wearing a helmet that doesn't fit and holding a shovel that may or may not have once been used for gardening and grave digging. Across from you stands Sergeant Wilkins. He is approximately 5 feet tall and 6 feet wide, all of it mustache and authority. He looks at you like he's trying to decide whether you're a man or a pudding in a coat. New one, eh? He growls. What's your name, lad? You clear your throat. James? He squints. You don't look like a James. You're not sure what that means. He eyes your boots. Soft hands. Yank accent. Probably fancy. You begin to explain that you're not fancy, just confused, but he cuts you off. We'll toughen you up. You'll be digging trenches, patrolling rooftops, and keeping the village safe from Jerry parachutists disguised as nuns. You pause. I'm sorry, did you say nuns? Disguised, he nods solemnly. They're clever, the Germans. You say nothing. You want to go home. But instead, you dig. You dig a trench for 3 hours. It's 6 inches deep, 5 feet long, and almost immediately floods because someone's dog urinated nearby. After digging, you're handed a tin mug of what they call field brew, hot water, tea leaves, condensed milk, and what you're reasonably sure is a piece of wood. You get used to it, says Private Graham, who is 72 and smells like socks and cough syrup. He offers you a sandwich, which consists of bread and pickled onion. No, not even that. It's just onion. One, singular, between 2 slices of stale bread. You chew slowly, eyes watering. We're a tough lot, he says proudly. You nod. Your stomach quietly files a restraining order. After lunch, it's patrol practice. You're given a wooden rifle, a paper map, and strict instructions. If you see anything suspicious, blow your whistle. You look around, everything is suspicious. You patrol a 5-house radius with Corporal Jenkins, a man who hasn't blinked since 1940 and insists he can smell a Nazi from half a mile away. He stops at random intervals to sniff the air. Chicken stew, he says at one point. No, wait, sabotage. You nod along, clutching your map upside down. Halfway through the patrol, you accidentally knock over a milk bottle and Jenkins dives into a hedge screaming, "Code Black!" You help him out 5 minutes later. He apologizes for flashbacks. Eventually, you make it back to the park for roll call. Sergeant Wilkins scowls at you. You're soft, but not useless. Not entirely. You thank him. It's the kindest thing anyone has said to you since you arrived. You'll be on signal duty tomorrow, he adds. If you can manage not to cry into the telegraph, you salute. Poorly. Back at the house, Mrs. Henshaw hands you a tin of beans and some toast. You eat in silence. The toast is cold. The beans are hot. Together, they form a sort of internal confusion that your stomach is still debating. So, she asks, knitting furiously. Did you stop the invasion? Almost, you mumble. The cat climbs into your lap and falls asleep. You begin to doze off yourself. You've earned it. But just as your body goes limp and your eyes flutter closed, the door slams. You jolt upright, heart pounding. Just the wind, says Mrs. Henshaw. You nod, breathing slowly. Then you hear it. A tiny whistle. Outside. You peek out the window. It's Private Graham. He's in your front garden, holding a rake. I thought I saw something suspicious in your begonias, he shouts. You sigh. Sleep will have to wait. Eventually, the garden is cleared. Graham is convinced your roses are not harboring enemy codebooks, and you crawl into bed. It's cold. The blanket smells like beans. Your muscles ache from pretending to be useful. But you survived your first day with the Home Guard. Barely. And somewhere in that cloudy brain of yours, something resembling pride is forming. You're still fancy, but you're trying. Sleep well, Sergeant Soft Hands. Tomorrow, it's back to work, only this time with explosives. You wake to the soothing, thunderous sound of Mrs. Henshaw whacking a carpet in the hallway. Not a metaphor, she is literally beating the living daylights out of a carpet. It's Wednesday, she says cheerfully. Time to go be useful. You groan. Can I just guard the begonias again? Nope. Factory shift. They need bodies. You try to explain that you have no experience with machinery, dangerous chemicals, or even wearing sensible shoes for long hours. Mrs. Henshaw shrugs. That never stopped anyone. And that is how you find yourself, 40 minutes later, standing outside Rutherford's manufacturing works, wearing a boiler suit 2 sizes too big and a hat that smells like engine oil and someone's uncle. The building is made of bricks, grime, and pure noise. It howls like a wounded robot and smells like old socks left in a petrol station. You are immediately handed a clipboard, a wrench, and a vague warning about your eyebrows. This way, says your supervisor, a woman named Edith who has arms like tree trunks and a voice like thunder and tweed. Have you ever worked a lathe? No. Ever used a drill press? No. Ever not panicked around moving parts? I. Good, she interrupts. You're on metal casing duty. If it sparks, duck, and with that, you're off. Your task is deceptively simple. Feed metal into a machine, press a lever, and retrieve what comes out without losing a finger or your sanity. It sounds straightforward. In reality, it's industrial roulette. You spend the first hour trying to remember which button does what, while Edith shouts helpful things like, "Stop wobbling," and "That's not your leg, that's a tool tray." It's hot, it's loud, it's genuinely terrifying. At one point, you press the wrong switch and cause a small puff of smoke to rise from the machine. You are convinced you've started a fire. Edith waves it off. "Just warming up," she says, grinning. You can't hear anything over the sound of drills, hammers, shouting, and an old man singing "Roll Out the Barrel" slightly off-key near the paint station. There's no lunch break, only tea and loaf, which, as it turns out, means 1 mug of boiling liquid and a piece of bread that tastes like drywall. You sit outside on a concrete step, eyes wide, hands shaking, sipping tea with motor oil notes. "So," says a woman named Dot, lighting a cigarette without using her hands, "what were you before the war?" "Alive," you mutter. She cackles. "Weren't we all?" You learn that most of the factory staff are women, many of them tougher than sandpaper and just as dry in humor. One shows you her wedding ring, which she keeps on a chain around her neck so it doesn't fall into the grinder. Another casually wipes grease off her face with a slice of beetroot and goes back to welding. By hour 5, you feel like your hands are attached to someone else's body. You have oil in your ears. You have metal shavings in places that should never contain metal shavings. You haven't blinked in 20 minutes. Then Edith says, the worst possible thing. "Fancy trying the munitions line?" You freeze. I'm not sure I'm qualified." She laughs. "You're breathing, aren't you?" And so it begins. The munitions line is a conveyor belt of fear. You place shell casings in the clamps, you tighten bolts, you don't sneeze. One wrong move, and you're the subject of tomorrow's local pamphlet on why safety goggles matter. Every so often, someone yells, "Oi, back up," and hits a big red button, and everything stops so someone can remove a jammed component using a spoon, 2 prayers, and a shoelace. You begin hallucinating the sound of alarms. You imagine what your obituary will say. Foreign man, unclear purpose, mistook grenade for lunch pail. By the end of your shift, your entire body vibrates with exhaustion. You can no longer close your left hand. You've forgotten your last name. You limp back to the changing room where someone hands you a bar of soap that crumbles on impact and a towel that might be burlap. Somehow, you emerge from the washroom dirtier. Outside, the air hits you like a soft, forgiving punch. Fresh, cold, untainted by steam and despair. Mrs. Henshaw meets you at the corner. She looks you up and down. "You smell like progress," she says. You nod slowly. "And trauma." She hands you a biscuit from her coat pocket. It is stale. It is slightly warm. It is perfect. That night, you collapse into bed with a sort of spiritual fatigue. Your muscles hum. Your eyes twitch involuntarily. Your ears ring with the echo of machinery and Edith's voice yelling, "Faster!" But you made it. You survived 1 shift. You look down at your hands, greasy, burnt, sore. You smile a little. You're starting to look less like a visitor and more like someone who actually belongs here. Sleep comes quickly. Your dreams are full of gears and tea kettles. Your blanket feels less scratchy than usual. You pull it tight, curl in, and drift off. Until, of course, a clattering noise outside wakes you up. A tin trash can has blown over. You sigh. Tomorrow, you do it all again. Welcome to working Britain. You wake up in a haze of aching joints and mystery bruises. The sun, if it exists, is being deeply shy again. Outside your window, gray skies loom like a disapproving teacher. You try to roll over but are stopped mid-turn by something crunchy. You reach under the blanket. It's a sock you wore 2 days ago. It has evolved. You sit up, sniff your armpit, recoil slightly, and accept your fate. "Time for a wash, love," says Mrs. Henshaw, appearing in the doorway like a wartime specter. You were hoping she meant you. She doesn't. She hands you a canvas bag filled with laundry. It makes a thunk noise. One of the shirts is actually stiff. "You're on tub duty," she announces, as if bestowing a sacred honor. You try to negotiate, offer to fix the fence, dig another trench, babysit the home guard. She's unmoved. "No one survives a week in wartime Britain without doing the laundry," she says. "It's a rite of passage. Now off you go." The laundry station is not so much a room as it is a tiled arena of suffering. It consists of a battered tin wash tub the size of a small bathtub, a washboard that could exfoliate a rhinoceros, a wringer that looks like it was last used during the Black Death, and a bar of soap that smells faintly of industrial cleaner, onions, and broken dreams. You look at the pile of clothing. It stares back. You pick up a shirt. It could stand up on its own. You name it Gerald, just in case it achieves sentience. First, soaking. You fill the tub with cold water because hot water is a luxury reserved for victory and injury. You dunk the clothes in and immediately lose feeling in both hands. Next, the scrub. You rub a pair of wool socks against the washboard. The socks resist. You scrub harder. The socks multiply. Eventually, suds appear. Or maybe foam? Hard to tell. "You're using too much soap," says Mrs. Henshaw from the doorway. "We have to make that bar last a whole month." You look down. The soap has dissolved into nothing. A tragic soap puddle. You try not to cry. Then comes the wringer. It is powered by you. You crank the heavy metal handle as Mrs. Henshaw feeds damp garments into the rollers. You are fairly sure you are building arm muscles previously unknown to science. Every turn of the crank is accompanied by a squelch and a small yelp from you. At one point, a sock gets stuck. You wrestle with it like a beast. It wins. Mrs. Henshaw pulls it free and hands it back like a defeated gladiator. "Try not to get your fingers caught," she adds, and walks off like she didn't just watch you nearly marry the wringer. Finally, hanging. You drag the dripping clothes outside to the line strung between the garden fence and the outhouse. The wind is angry. The clothes are heavier than you remember. You clip up 3 shirts before realizing you've hung them by the sleeves and they look like ghostly high fivers. As you turn to grab the socks, a rogue gust of wind blows your clean underwear into next door's garden, right into the mouth of their goat. Yes, they have a goat. You vault the fence, retrieve your underpants, and glare at the goat, who looks smug. Back inside, you are soaked, frozen, and emotionally raw. But Mrs. Henshaw nods at you. "You'll do," she says. You feel weirdly proud. To celebrate, she hands you a small towel and a bucket of warm water. "Your turn," she says. "My turn to wash yourself." You look around. Where's the bath? She raises an eyebrow. "This is the bath." And that's how you find yourself sitting half dressed in the kitchen chair with your feet in a tub, flannel washing your armpits while the cat stares judgmentally and someone outside whistles Rule Britannia. You learn very quickly. Baths are once a week. You share bathwater with the entire household. The water is reused until it reaches a density that could support aquatic life. No splashing. You do your best with the flannel. It's cold. It's awkward. It feels less like bathing and more like gently bullying yourself with a rag. But by the end, you feel better. Cleaner, like you've earned your right to lie down. That night, your sheets are clean. Your hair is only mostly damp. The blanket is warm. The air smells like laundry, soap, and cabbage. And for the first time in days, your skin doesn't feel like it's about to peel off from chemical exposure. You curl up under the covers. You sigh contentedly. You've survived war work, home guard, paranoia, and full contact laundry. You're still here. Still tired. Still tucked in. Sleep comes faster tonight. You dream of warm water and soap that doesn't insult your ancestry. You're becoming one of them. Sort of, you're asleep. Or trying to be. Your body, deeply traumatized by washboard warfare, is attempting a full reboot. But rest is a fleeting dream, because there it is, again, the unmistakable clang of the enamel saucepan against the kitchen counter. Mrs. Henshaw's version of a wake-up call. You groan. Today, she informs you, is gardening day. You smile faintly. How bad could it be? Plants, flowers, bees, maybe some light weeding, followed by a nice lie down. Wrong. Dig for victory, she says, thrusting a shovel into your hand like a sword before a battle. Time to grow your own rations or starve nobly. And so it begins. Behind the house is a sad, lumpy rectangle of earth that might once have been a lawn or possibly a cow. It now serves as your personal battlefield. Turn it all over, she says. Nice and deep. We'll get carrots and beetroot in by spring. Maybe a marrow if God is kind. You look at the shovel. It looks back, unimpressed. Then you look at the ground. It's harder than algebra. Somewhere deep beneath the surface lies an ecosystem of worms, clay, and old coins with Queen Victoria's face on them. You plunge the shovel into the soil. It does not go in. You put your weight on it. It moves approximately 1/4 inch and promptly hits what might be a fossilized horse hoof. You dig anyway, badly, for hours. By lunchtime, you've unearthed one broken teacup, a rusted spoon, a sardine tin dated 1926, and what might be a clay pipe or possibly just a weird stick. You show these to Mrs. Henshaw. She nods solemnly and adds them to the not quite rubbish shelf in the hallway. Lunch is onion soup, mostly onion water, with a floating bit of something that might be potato or wood. Grows character, she says. You are beginning to suspect that wartime Britain runs almost entirely on hope and beige liquids. Back in the garden, you finally start making progress. Your hands are blistered, your boots are soaked, your soul is bruised. Mrs. Henshaw appears periodically to offer commentary from the back step. You're digging like someone who's afraid of dirt. That's not a trench, it's a wobbly suggestion. Don't look at the sky. It's not going to help you. At one point, a neighbor walks by and tips his hat. Growing your own veg, are you? You nod. Better than starving, innit? You nod again. Mind the slugs. They'll eat your soul. Then he's gone. Later, you're entrusted with seeds. Tiny brown flecks of destiny in a paper packet. You kneel, hands muddy, and plant each one with the kind of reverence usually reserved for burial rites. Carrots, you mutter. Please be carrots. You pat the soil, then water it with a rusty can that leaks slightly from the bottom. You're not sure if you're helping or simply humiliating them. Mrs. Henshaw inspects your work. She grunts. What does that mean? Could be worse. You beam. This is high praise. That night, you drag your aching body back inside. There is dirt in your shoes, behind your ears, and possibly in your lungs. You smell like compost and vague regret. Dinner is a victory pie. It contains a single potato sliced as thin as humanly possible, 2 peas, and gravy made from flour, water, and the dream of meat. Still, it's hot, and it's yours. Sort of. You eat slowly, every bite more delicious than it has any right to be. Because you planted something today, because you did something. And also because Mrs. Henshaw is watching and she will take your portion if you look ungrateful. You collapse into bed, your hands are sore, your back feels like it's aged 50 years, your nose is sunburnt. From the 7 minutes the sun actually showed up, but you feel good. There's something deeply satisfying about growing your own food, or at least attempting to. You close your eyes and dream of carrots, fat and orange and kind, growing just for you. You imagine a future where you walk into the kitchen holding a beetroot like a trophy. Outside, it begins to rain. You remember the seeds. You leap out of bed and dash to the window. The soil is holding. The garden is safe. You sigh and pull your blanket up to your chin. It smells faintly of mud and turnip dreams. You fall asleep knowing that somewhere beneath a modest plot of soggy earth, your carrots are plotting greatness. You'll check on them tomorrow. Maybe name one of them Gerald. It begins innocently enough. You're sitting in the living room, finally horizontal on the threadbare armchair, sipping lukewarm tea made mostly from boiled optimism and floor dust. The wireless crackles with a BBC announcer talking about resilience and the importance of blackout curtains. You glance at the window. It's covered with a blanket. Not a blackout curtain in an actual blanket, held in place with clothes, pegs, and Mrs. Henshaw's wartime creativity. Nearly 8, she says, time for lights out. You take a moment to imagine what the average American is doing at this hour. Probably eating a hot dog, driving a car with headlights, watching something bright on television. Then you remember you don't have electricity after dark, because light attracts bombers, and bombers ruin everything. Welcome to the blackout. At 8 sharp, the lights go out. Not just in your house, everywhere. The entire street plunges into darkness so complete, it feels like the sun has fled in terror. You cannot see your hand in front of your face, or your knees, or the family cat, who silently climbs into your lap with claws deployed. Right, says Mrs. Henshaw. Time to check the windows. She moves through the house with terrifying confidence. You stumble behind her, banging your shin on an end table and whispering a polite expletive. The rules are clear. No light leaks. None. Even a sliver of candlelight showing through a gap in the curtain can earn you a fine. Or worse, a visit from the dreaded air raid precaution warden. And no one wants that. The warden is a man named Cyril. He has a mustache like a vengeful squirrel and walks around with a whistle and an infinite supply of judgment. You tape the edges of the blanket tighter. You squint through the gaps. You light a single candle inside a biscuit tin because even light needs armor now. You sit back down. You hear the clock tick. You listen to the silence, which isn't silence at all. It's a symphony of creaks, floorboard groans, and distant muttering from the old woman next door who talks in her sleep. Then you hear something else. A whistle. Outside. You freeze. He's coming, hisses Mrs. Henshaw, lunging across the room like a panther with arthritis and snuffing out your candle. The room is once again consumed by blackness. You don't breathe. You don't blink. You try to remember where your knees are. A knock at the door. 3 polite raps of impending doom. Mrs. Henshaw opens the door barely an inch. A voice floats in. Evening. Mrs. H. Light leak on your back window. Must have been the cat, she replies smoothly. I don't care if it was the king himself. I'll be round tomorrow to check. And just like that, he's gone. You light the candle again and whisper, did he just threaten the king? Mrs. Henshaw shrugs. He threatened the vicar once, over a glowworm. You decide not to ask. Later, needing air, you venture outside. You are equipped with a flashlight with half a battery and no bulb, a scarf wrapped around your entire face, and the knowledge that if you breathe too loud, someone will mistake you for a Nazi. The street is eerie, Shapes loom out of the dark. You pass your neighbor Harold, who is crouching beside his hedge wearing a saucepan on his head and whispering, "just in case," to no one in particular. You trip over a flower pot, narrowly avoid a coal bin, and realize with some shame that you have no idea how to get back to your house. Because everything looks the same in the dark. You wander for a while. Your foot squelches in something you hope is a puddle. You pass the same postbox 3 times. You begin to suspect you've joined the shadow realm. Then, sweet mercy, you hear Mrs. Henshaw's voice, cutting through the night like a knife made of sarcasm. "Looking for your brain out there?" You follow the sound and collapse through the door like a war-weary raccoon. "You forgot to carry your blackout pass," she scolds. "I don't even know what that is," you gasp. "It's in the drawer, under the candles, next to the potato peeler." "Of course it is." She hands you a biscuit. It's dry, square, and emotionally indifferent, but it helps. That night, your dreams are full of glowing cats, judgmental wardens, and walking into walls. But you wake up, still whole, still in Britain, still wrapped in a blanket that smells like dust and defiance. You glance out the window. Still no light. Still no bombs. Still not America. But you're doing all right. You're tucked in. You're mostly clean. You've only been fined once. You're surviving. Barely. You're awake again barely. At this point, you don't so much sleep as collapse in shifts. Your body is permanently bruised, and you now flinch when anyone offers you soup, a shovel, or a mysterious meat pie. The days have blurred. You've lost track of how many weeks you've been here. You've also lost track of your dignity, 2 socks, and any concept of personal space. You're no longer surprised when the cat drinks your tea. This morning starts like all others now. A foggy haze, a cold splash from a jug of water that feels like it came straight from the Arctic, and Mrs. Henshaw's daily pep talk, which includes words like stoicism and rationing, builds character. You nod like you believe her. You do not. She's already busy grating a Swede into something she claims will resemble breakfast. You've stopped asking follow-up questions. There's a knock at the door. You freeze. A knock means 2 things: officials or neighbors with emotional emergencies and tinned mackerel. It's a man in uniform RAF, maybe? "We're looking for volunteers," he says too cheerfully. You try to step backwards. Mrs. Henshaw physically shoves you forward with a wooden spoon. An hour later, you're at the local airfield, being handed a bright yellow vest and shown how to point a torch at the sky. Spotters, they call you. Eyes to the heavens. You're given a tin hat, a seat on a wobbly stool, and a pair of binoculars that smell like fish. For the next 3 hours, you stare at clouds. Then you stare at more clouds. Then you hallucinate a cloud shaped like a dachshund piloting a Spitfire. Eventually, an officer wanders over and says, "Good work. No Germans today." You nod solemnly as if you helped with that. Back home, Mrs. Henshaw has made a celebration dinner. It contains no meat, little salt, and only one vegetable you can name confidently. But it's hot and it's yours. She places a small pink lump on your plate. "Spam," she announces. You take a bite. Your eyes water. You're pretty sure it's meat, or at least meat adjacent. "It's actually not that bad." Then she pulls out a second tin and says something you'll never forget. "I've learned how to make Spam custard." You pretend you didn't hear it. She serves it anyway. You eat it out of politeness and survive purely out of spite. That night, you dream of Spam taking over Parliament. Later that week, an air raid siren goes off in the middle of your very brief nap. The sound is awful, like a wounded trumpet giving birth to a banshee. Mrs. Henshaw yells, "Get down," and drags you into the Anderson shelter in the garden, basically a tin shed buried halfway into the ground with enough condensation to water an entire allotment. Inside, it's damp. It smells like cabbage and fear. And someone has stored old newspapers from 1932 in here for reading material. You huddle, knees to chest, as the world rumbles above you, It's the first time you've really felt the war, not just tasted it in your tea or worn it in your shoes. Outside, something explodes miles away. Then silence, then birds. You exhale, you're still here. The next day, you help dig out a neighbor's windows after a nearby bomb blast. Nothing serious, just glass and broken flower pots. No one's hurt, but you're quiet for most of the morning. Even the cat seems subdued. As the days drag on, something strange starts to happen. You start to blend in. Not fully. You still can't spread margarine properly, and your accent continues to offend local cows. But you know which bus not to take, how to tell real coffee from pretend bean juice, and where the pub hides its decent ale. You've made peace with tea that tastes like regret. You've even grown fond of your trench. One afternoon, you find yourself volunteering to fix the home guard's fence, and you don't even cry this time. Later, you help deliver letters to the village post office walking 3 miles in drizzle that feels personal. At one point, you pass a mirror and realize you look like them now. Hair all wrong, clothes slightly too big, socks drying on your belt, face smudged with ash or possibly gravy. But you're smiling. Somehow. It's not long before you're trusted to take part in the Sunday victory drills parading through the village square with a broom handle as your rifle and a helmet that doesn't fit. They call you Private Yank. You don't correct them. At one point during a small local fundraiser, you're roped into giving a short speech about your experience so far. You panic, you freeze, then you tell the truth. I came here thinking I'd survive a week, that I'd spend most of it damp, confused, and hungry. There are knowing laughs. I didn't expect to fall in love with a cat, get kicked by a goat, or risk my life for a parsnip. More laughs. A few cheers. I've learned that biscuits don't have to be sweet, beds don't have to be soft, and people don't have to be loud to be kind. You pause. You're not sure why your eyes sting. I still don't know what half of you are saying most of the time, but I know what you mean. And I think that's enough. You get an ovation, possibly because someone spiked the lemonade, but still it counts. That night, Mrs. Henshaw pours you a small glass of something that may or may not be legal and says, "Not bad for a foreigner." You raise your glass. Cheers. She nods. And you never even got conscripted. That's lucky. You stare at her. Wait, what? Anyway, she says, finish your beetroot pudding. You lie in bed one last time, wrapped in that familiar itchy blanket, the wind whispering nonsense through the window cracks. You stare up at the ceiling, listening to the distant sound of the night patrol arguing about whether the moon counts as a light source. You chuckle. You made it. Against all odds, rain, rationing, rogue wildlife, and rock-hard mattresses, you've survived a week. Just barely. You feel it in your bones, your feet, your oddly beetroot-tinted dreams. You close your eyes. The war still rages beyond the hedgerows. But in this small house, in this small village, in this narrow little bed you are tucked in, warmed by strange food and stranger friendships. And if you're very lucky, breakfast tomorrow might not involve turnips. But you know it will. And somehow you're okay with that. Sleep well, soldier. You've earned it.